Veganism is all about causing the least amount of harm possible, but according to a recent article, due to the process of harvesting crops, vegan and vegetarian diets may actually carry a higher body count and environmental cost than their omnivorous counterparts. So, is it time for us vegans to get on the grass-fed beef bandwagon? Let's find out. Hi, it's Emily from Bite Size Vegan, and welcome to another Vegan Nugget. Before I jump into this behemoth of a topic, I want to note that all of the studies that I'll be referencing, plus additional resources, are available in the blog post for this video, which is linked here and in the video description. Please reference it for more in-depth analysis. Now, the article that I mentioned in the opening by Professor Mike Archer, Ordering the Vegetarian Meal, There's More Animal Blood on Your Hands, was originally published in 2011, but recently went viral across Facebook when reposted by I F***ing Love Science. It was quickly shared over 100,000 times, most likely posted to the walls of vegans with furious gusto in an enthusiastic gotcha moment, the most inspired retort to the vegan argument since bacon. But this is not a new argument, just a repackaged one. And despite my cavalier demeanor, I do believe that this is an important issue to address. Vegans should be aware of the harm that we inflict. We are not above the human condition of hurting other beings, and we should acknowledge this and do our best to reduce our impact. I recently spoke with vegan activist Gary Yourofsky about whether it's even possible to be 100% vegan, and you can check out that discussion here. But today we're going to look at whether a vegan diet is truly the best ethical choice. The academic cornerstone of this argument was laid in a 2001 paper by Stephen L. Davis, in which Davis wrote a critique on the least harm principle proposed by animal rights philosopher Tom Regan. When asked what the difference was between killing a field mouse while cultivating crops and killing a pig for human consumption, Regan said that we must choose the food products that, overall, caused the least harm to the least number of animals. Davis responded to Regan's assertion that a vegan diet fulfilled this principle with his paper entitled "The Least Harm Principle May Require That Humans Consume a Diet Containing Large Herbivores, Not a Vegan Diet," in which he asserted just that. This conclusion was echoed 10 years later in the recently made viral article of Mike Archer. It's important to note that Archer and Davis's arguments hinge on the comparison of pasture-fed cattle to field animal deaths, particularly from grain harvests in Archer's case. They are both comparing the most ideal practice of raising cattle to the least ideal practice of harvesting crops. Of course, if we were instead to compare the deaths of factory farm animals, which are the majority of our food animals, the difference would be laughable. With our modern farming methods, it takes up to 16 pounds of grains to produce 1 pound of beef. Therefore, non-vegans consume, whether directly or indirectly, more than 10 times the amount of plant matter of vegans, thus compounding the death of meat animals with field animals. This is why Archer and Davis advocate the consumption of range-fed cattle for the reduction of both animal deaths and environmental destruction. Setting aside for a moment the fact that the overwhelming majority of meat produced in the world is grain-fed, 97% in the United States and ever-growing internationally, including Archer's Australia, a fact which completely invalidates this entire argument of omnivores causing less harm. Let's look at the viability of grass-fed cattle as a primary source of protein. Pasture-raised livestock is not the idyllic picture of environmental sustainability so often painted by its advocates. While there are some advantages to grass-fed cattle, and it is in many ways far preferable to feedlots, the rangeland required is incredibly vast. This means habitat destruction on an epic scale, coupled with the fact that there simply isn't enough land to raise sufficient grass-fed cattle to meet current consumption demands. Brazil is a perfect case study of large-scale grass-fed cattle production, a practice which has led to what Greenpeace termed in their 2009 report slaughtering the Amazon. The report showed that Amazonian cattle are now the largest single cause of deforestation and responsible for 20% of the world's greenhouse gases. In his article, The Truth About Grass-Fed Beef, John Robbins states that Amazonian cattle are free-range, grass-fed, and possibly organic, but they are still a plague on the planet and a driving force behind global warming. Regardless of these statistics and the viability of grass-fed cattle, the fact remains that the vast majority of meat consumed by non-vegans is feedlot meat. Additionally, non-vegans are not excluded from eating grains directly. In his refutation of Archer's article, Patrick Moriarty points out the obvious, that a hamburger has 1 layer of meat but 2 layers of bun. And I'd add that not all vegans base their diets on grain products, and some vegans don't consume grains at all. Now, returning to the issue of the field animal death toll, if we take a closer look at Davis's calculations from the original article, we'll find his figures circumspect. Gavrik Matheny did just this in his 2003 article in the Journal of Agriculture cultural and environmental ethics, Matheny pointed out that Davis based his figures on land area rather than per consumer, and, like Archer, had confined his analysis to grass-fed ruminants. Davis also neglected to factor in the weight of suffering and cruelty inflicted upon farm animals, which are spared animals of the field. Matheny concludes that, when we correct these errors, Davis's argument makes a strong case for, rather than against, adopting a vegetarian diet. Vegetarianism kills fewer animals, involves better treatment of animals, and likely allows a greater number of animals with lives worth living to exist. With Davis's mathematical errors corrected, this graph from animalvisuals.org makes evident the true nature of animal deaths per calorie of food. It should be noted that Archer's more recent article bases calculations on deaths per gram of protein, further falsely skewing the results in favor of meat. Furthermore, Professor Andy Lamy, in his article in the Journal of Social Philosophy, criticized the studies that Davis utilized to derive his statistics in the first place. One study included deaths from natural predation, and the other examined the production of sugarcane, a rather non-standard crop, which Lamy wrote has little relevance to deaths associated with typical crop production. Both Lamy and Matheny also argued that accidental deaths are ethically distinct from intentional ones. Now, does this exempt vegans from owning the deaths that we do cause? Absolutely not. This issue should give animal advocates pause. We need to be aware of the harm that we do cause animals, whether intentional or not. And I'll be the first vegan to admit that I most certainly do inadvertently cause animal suffering. It's inevitable, but that does not invalidate the vegan stance and the continual striving for the reduction of harm. And neither do studies with flawed calculations and skewed data. So, let's summarize. 2001. Davis says, a vegan diet kills more animals than a select omnivorous one. 2003, Matheny says, no it doesn't. With science. 2008, Lamy says, yeah, also with science. 2011, Archer says, a vegan diet kills more animals than a select omnivorous one. 2012, Moriarty says, no it doesn't. With science. 2014, I f***ing love science reposts Archer, and the internet goes wild. With conjecture. So now I need your help. Let's make this video go just as viral as the article that it refutes. Share it everywhere, post and repost. Tweet it out to I f***ing love science, and let me know what you think about this subject. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new, hit that big red subscribe button down there for more awesome vegan content every Monday and Wednesday and some Fridays. To support messages like this, and for the best discussions and behind-the-scene actions, join us in the Nugget Army over on Patreon. For the true environmental impact of animal products, check out that top video over there. And for a primer on the moral and ethical foundation of veganism, be sure to check out that bottom video. Now go live vegan, and I'll see you soon.